Gen Z, they don't want to see as much romance and they don't want to see as much sex in movies.
Well, yeah, I even heard that like with Oppenheimer, they were like the Florence Pugh thing was too awkward.
Yeah, well, like on one hand, you read that and you're like, yeah, I kind of get that. You know, nobody likes remember like Natalie Portman in Thor 1, you know, just tacked on romantic interests. And certainly like growing up, like if I was watching like a movie with my family, it was like PG-13 and all of a sudden like two people are like on the brink of having sex for no reason. You know, like why is this in the movie? And everybody has to like avert their eyes for 5 minutes.
That's just growing up, man. That's a valuable experience.
So I understand like objecting to gratuitousness or to like when it's totally unnecessary. I'm not sure. Like there's not. I'd have to think about it. There's not. I don't think there's too many movies where the movie stops for the two people to just have sex, and it's totally like this should be in the movie. This totally works. Yeah.
The Room.
I was gonna say The Room. Yeah, multiple times. Yeah, like 4 or 5 times. Cue the jazz and the flower petals.
Thrusting into her stomach.
Like way up high on her. The poor woman. I remember when I first saw the flower petals, for some reason I thought they were lesions on her back. He just decorated the bed in flower petals. But the part that I'm like, no, I can't go with you on that one, Gen Z, is when they were like, we really prefer platonic relationships that are more brotherly, sisterly, that are more buddy-buddy. And I'm like, well, come on. Let's not pretend that, like, the human experience isn't in many ways defined by romance and by romantic relationships. Like, why must we, like spit in the eye of that, you know?
It's like in the cartoon Rebels, Sabine and Ezra were, like, they kind of had, like, a sort of like a budding romance, or at least a one-sided romance, and then it's kind of like in Ahsoka, like Ezra comes out right away. It's like, you are like a sister to me. It's like to appeal to Gen Z.
You know, on the topic of objecting to changes in the movie landscape, a couple weeks ago, man, there was this thing that kept happening in my social media feed, where they would show the same photo of Michael Caine looking kind of 95 and distressed. Always just looking a bit like this. It kept being headlines that were like, Michael Caine, now in his 90s, objects to having intimacy coaches in movies. It's like, I don't understand the bloody point of them. And then they would run another article with the same exact photo of him looking distressed and 90. It says, Michael Caine says, younger wives are one of 3 secrets to a long life. So it's him saying all this based stuff with the same kind of confused look on his face. I don't know.
I saw one of those probably with the same picture, and it was like, Michael Caine, 90-something. He says he can't act anymore because he can't walk. I can't walk anymore.
I'm allowed to act without walking. I don't understand. We used to have to walk.
My feet.
With a thankful heart, with an English joy.
He gets very, very specific. It's very like that. When he gets loudly, it gets very loud indeed. She was only 60. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
You know how we're all now fed reels, YouTube reels, and TikToks and Instagrams? Like, it's always those little 1-minute videos that we're just constantly fed. I was sitting next to a guy recently, and he didn't even know what he was doing. He was just staring at video, like little 1-minute portrait videos over and over again. I was like, just feeding on it.
Some nights I feel like I'm that guy.
Yeah.
just scrolling forever, and then it's like feeding me more and more nonsense. I'm like, yes, I will look at this cat.
Sometimes I think they make for good topics of conversation. And this one was Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office. He was talking about how he recognizes that when he was on that show, it's kind of a miracle. He's like, I grew up a total nerd. I really had no business getting cast in a show that would become one of like the biggest comedies in like U.S. television of all time, with a really memorable character, with an incredible cast, with that lasted for however many seasons, all this amazing stuff. And he's like, and I still was kind of angsty the whole time. I was like, how come I didn't get that movie? And how come the movie I was in bombed? And how come I don't have an office at Warner Brothers? And how come this? And how come that? Like, as soon as, even though he had this embarrassment of riches, it led immediately to this, like, all these new desires that weren't being fulfilled that were then leading to unhappiness.
I spent a lot of time, unnecessary time and angst and anguish in that anxious discontent at a time when I should have just been like, it doesn't get better than this. Just enjoy it.
And I feel like that speaks to like, that is such a huge human problem that, you know, when he was a kid, he probably couldn't ever imagine being as lucky as to be on a show like The Office. And then when you have it, it's now your new reference point for normal, and you start striving for new things, and you become empty for the new thing. You know, it's like, how do you combat that stupidity in yourself? You know?
Yeah, no, it's you know, the whole grass is always greener thing, right? So, and you know, I think to be an actor to begin with, to actually just choose that life, you have to be like so motivated to do so. And I don't think you'll ever feel, I mean, you probably have to struggle a lot to do it. And so you never really feel like you're safe. And so I think all of these things, you have to be kind of a megalomaniac. So all these things like converge to that feeling as well. Yeah, I know. Seriously, if you were on The Office, like, wasn't that the like most watched show on Netflix before it was taken off?
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean,
like,
you know, and
it was probably responsible for some of Netflix's success was just that show being on there.
Yep. But yeah, I you know, I'd be lying if I can think of times in my life where, man, like I remember being out of college and being like, oh my God, I just hope I get this job. You know, I just really need a job. I just need a full-time job. And this one looks like it would be a really good fit for me. And then I'd have my health insurance, and like, that's really all I want is just that job. Like, you're not really concerned about anything else. And then, you know, how long before you're like, fuck this job, and start, you know, being upset about it and being better than it.
Sounds to me like you think you're too good for Pizza Hut.
All I want to do is have 1,000 people watch my YouTube content. Why isn't it 100,000 people? You know, like you just chase like weird numbers, arbitrary numbers.
I don't want it to be 100,000 people. 100,000 subscribers, 100,000 problems.
We've met a lot of really awesome, cool people. You know, we posted like the Best Buy clip today, and it's always like interesting to me to learn like, oh, like, you know, because that one is performing better than the average. And to me, it's just like a random topic. I didn't know that it would necessarily. And maybe there's like 100 comments on it or something. And you realize like, oh, everybody in the audience, it's like a lot of Blu-ray collectors and a lot of DVD collectors in this audience. You know, you sometimes like lose track of like, what is it that the people who are regularly watching, what are they into, you know?
Well, especially if they came through the Cinemassacre talk, I'm sure a lot of them enjoyed Monster Madness for similar reasons, because they're probably into film and want to collect physical media. So that was probably just they hit the right topic.
Yeah.
That converged with that one. A lot of the ones that were saying the same thing were talking about, oh, well, physical media will become like a niche thing. It'll be like limited run games almost, or like the Shout Factory, which that makes sense. I didn't really think about that. It'll be for the hardcore people like us who want the real physical thing, but it'll be a limited run.
Somebody made a good point where they're like, well, look, people who love home theaters and have invested a lot of money into their home theater, they have money. And those people will buy 4K versions of films, and you can have limited runs. That's probably exactly what will happen. And the cost of DVDs and Blu-rays will go up. But maybe the quality of them will go up too. Maybe you'll stop having these you know, like those really kind of uninspired Blu-ray releases. Maybe you'll have really nice ones as a result. You know, they were like, somebody said, well, they won't stop releasing them, but they'll only release them for major releases, not for any minor releases. And that, I see their point. That's probably true. But at the same time, I'm like, or you have like Red Cow, who is like this boutique, very niche, small YouTube channel that makes a boutique run of its own Blu-rays. And that, like, I'm more likely to buy, I think, like a YouTuber's Blu-ray probably at this point than I would be a Disney one, personally.
Yeah, it's like it's like those cult indie horror films that get
Yeah.
the Shout Factory treatment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they like restore this like shitty movie that nobody watched. It's like, but it's got a cult following.
I'll spend money on that.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.